Representative Mike Rogers is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and he's out front tonight. Chairman, good to see you as always. Let me just start with this. There isn't a big difference between the president and Governor Romney, at least when they talk about Iran. They both want sanctions. They don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. But based on your intelligence that you receive, how close is Iran to that capability, to use that crucial word, to build a nuclear weapon, if that's what they want? Of course, they say that's not what they want.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I don't think anyone denies the fact that they're working toward a nuclear weapon. I think the European intelligence services, clearly our relationship with the Israelis, others, even others in the Middle East will tell you, intelligence services will tell you that they're well on their way to get a nuclear weapon. Here's the thing. They hit a very important milestone in the pursuing of a nuclear weapon, Aaron. They hit that magic 20% enrichment rate. So from 0 to 20%, really difficult to do, very hard to do. They've had some problems, had some equipment failures and other things, but they've hit that 20%. That means from 20 to the 90 plus that they need for highly enriched uranium, much easier to do. So they've crossed that very important hurdle. They're moving centrifuges into a facility, which is why all of this angst is in Israel, into a facility that's underground. So we believe that they have enough centrifuges and are on target to have enrichment capability for multiple bombs. So that's what the concern is. And the timeline problem here is this. The Israelis will tell you that they believe if it goes much longer, they may or may not be able to impact the program. In other words, slow it down by military strikes or other things. So that's why all of this angst over Iran, because this timeline, this window is getting smaller.
And I mean, I guess the hope still, it seemed from both the president and the governor, is that sanctions will work. And that's why I wanted to ask you this, because one thing that sort of is shocking is that the top 4 buyers of Iranian crude oil are still buying it. We're talking about Japan, China, India, and Korea. And they're doing it with the blessing of the U.S. State Department. China is now buying half of Iran's daily output. So, yes, sanctions have hurt them. Yes, their oil exports have plunged. But the biggest buyers are still buying. And I'm wondering why that is, that the U.S. government gives those free passes. Is it because we just can't get China to do what we want?
Well, China is certainly not going to cooperate with the United States in any way on Iran. They have other deals there, so they need that petroleum. Remember, China has to grow at about 8% a year just to meet their social demands on their government spending. So they're not going to pay attention to us. They haven't been very helpful in trying to slow down the Iranian program. Russia has also not been very helpful on trying to slow down the Iranian program. So they're not going to help us. The other countries that got waivers was a little bit concerning. You know, to that other side of that coin is that these countries said it would be so crippling to their economy because they take such a high percentage of Iranian oil that they wouldn't be able to survive it economically. And so that's the problem you have. But here's the thing we have to remember. We sanctioned North Korea almost to starvation. They are well on their way, and in fact, we believe that they have weapons-grade enriched uranium today. So it can't just be sanctions. It has to be at least the threat. Now, I'm just talking about the threat. And Iran has to believe it, that all options are on the table. And here's the problem. Israel doesn't believe the U.S. is serious, and neither does Iran. That has been the biggest problem in why you see this Israeli-American, at least they're fighting with the administration over this.
Do you think, though, then, that we're going to end up in a position where we have to make a choice on military action? Obviously, if Iran's still getting money from those buyers of oil, and there's a lot of companies that operate here in the U.S., by the way, like Samsung, that operate in Iran. We don't stop that either. They're going to keep getting closer, then we're going to have to make good on that threat. And I think Iran is well aware of what we're all aware of, every viewer of this interview is aware of, which is the American people don't want war.
Yeah, again, there's a whole series of options other than war. And I think that's the mistake here, is that the talk is, well, it's either war or just sanctions, or you can't have anything in between. There is a whole series of options, Aaron, that a president would have available to him, and whoever that is, come November 6th. I have my choice. But after November 6th, whoever that president is going to have a whole series of options that they can do well short of war, but would have, you know, some impact there into the program. Now, Israel, remember, they have Egypt that is no longer a reliable partner in the south. They have Hezbollah is becoming more anxious, has 30,000 missiles pointed at Israel. Hamas has been engaged in activity in the Sinai. They feel like they are under siege, and they can't afford to let Iran get a nuclear weapon. I believe that there are capabilities we can engage in short of war, believe me, that can help slow that program down that we were just a little short of doing, I think.
Do you think that bombing those key facilities, whether it's Parchin or Fordow, is that short of war in your opinion, or would that actually spark a war? If we use one of those, massive ordnance penetrators, 30,000-ton bombs that could actually penetrate deep under the ground, whereas you say they have been placing some of their facilities?
Well, I would be cautious of short of war. I will say that...
So that's not, that would be war. Okay.
Well, in very targeted strikes, we use very targeted strikes against al-Qaeda. And so if it is a very targeted strike, many would argue that's short of war. And if it only seeks to go after their nuclear program, that is now, we're not talking about invasions or naval engagements or troops on the ground, none of that. And this has been used by other, President Clinton used this tactic, but there's also other things under that. I'm not saying that's all, that is the right answer. That is an option that I believe is short of war if it is very selective, very targeted only to the nuclear program. And we do know that that the Iranians believe that there's a whole panoply of options, war, and then these targeted strikes that they don't see wouldn't see as an act of war.
All right. Well, Chairman, thanks. Always good to talk to you. Appreciate your time.